Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be tackling something I think a lot of ABAP developers out there are really going to appreciate.
Yeah.
And that is how to use AI to really just crush all that documentation work.
Yeah.
It eats up all our time. It never
Right.
seems to be fully under control.
It's a pain point we all know too well.
It really is.
Yeah.
And so that's where this deep dive, I think, gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because we've got a couple sources here that point to a potential game changer.
Right.
We're talking about automating ABAP documentation using AI Visual Studio Code.
Yep.
And tools that you probably already have.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm already kind of geeking out about this just thinking about it.
Yeah, it's really interesting, especially using tools that are already popular
Exactly.
in the development community.
Yeah, and we're going to be looking at a Reddit post by Benjamin Buxbaum
Okay.
that kind of lays out this innovative workflow. And then we're going to check out a supporting blog post on the SAP community by Mario Andrzejczak that digs into some of the more technical details.
Sounds good. Yeah, by the end of this, you'll have a good understanding of how it all works and, more importantly, how it can save you a lot of time and headaches.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit.
All right.
So first off, let's all just acknowledge the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Manual ABAP documentation, it's tedious, it's often inaccurate, it gets outdated quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not the most exciting part of being a developer.
Absolutely. And that's precisely what this workflow is aiming to address.
Right.
Trying to automate as much of that process as possible so you can focus on the more creative
Interesting
aspects of development.
Okay, so the Reddit post dives right into this awesome solution.
Yeah.
And it revolves around a few core components.
Okay.
First, we got Visual Studio Code. Most of you are probably familiar with that already.
Yeah.
That's going to be kind of our home base for this whole operation.
Right.
And then there's the client extension for VS Code, and this is where the magic happens.
Okay.
Client is what allows us to tap into the power of AI.
Gotcha.
And speaking of AI, the post mentions a couple options.
Okay.
You can use a cloud-based model like DeepSeek R1, or if you'd rather keep things local,
Okay.
you can even run your own model using a tool called Alama.
And that's nice because it meets a lot of different preferences
That's
for
the-
security and such.
Now, here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
The whole workflow hinges on something called the MCP ABAP server.
Okay.
Think of this as the bridge between Clay Klein, which is running in VS Code,
Right.
and your SAP system.
Like a translator.
Exactly. It's like this universal translator helping these two different worlds understand each other.
Right.
And for those who aren't familiar with MCP, it stands for Model Context Protocol.
Okay.
It's basically just a standardized way for tools like Clay Klein to talk to and get information from different systems, in this case, our SAP system.
Right. Without that, Clayton wouldn't be able to pull all that source code and all the metadata
Exactly.
from your system.
To generate the documentation.
So let's walk through this step by step.
See how it all comes together.
Yeah.
The Reddit post breaks it down into two main phases, plan mode and AC mode.
Okay.
Plan mode is all about gathering the necessary information.
Okay.
So Klein uses a specific prompt, like a set of instructions,
Right.
to query the SAP system through that MCP ABAP server we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Klein is basically saying, hey, SAP system, give me everything I need to know about these ABAP objects so I can document them properly.
Exactly. Pull all the information, all the metadata, everything.
All the juicy details.
Yeah.
Right, so Klein has all the info it needs. Now it's showtime.
Yeah. ACT mode.
That's where ACT mode kicks in.
That's where Klein puts on its writer tat and starts generating all the documentation.
Right.
Creates a nice markdown format.
Which is awesome because Markdown is so simple.
Mm-hmm.
Easy to convert to other formats.
Exactly.
But doesn't stop there.
Wow.
Klein can also capture screenshots directly from the SAP GI
Wow.
to visually enhance the documentation.
So it's actually going in and navigating through the GUI and taking pictures as it goes.
I love it.
So you have like a step-by-step visual guide.
Yeah. It's way more helpful than just looking at lines of code.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The post also mentions using mermaid diagrams to add even more visual flair
Nice.
to the documentation. Klein can render those diagrams using a command line tool called MMDC.
Very cool. It's really impressive how Klein can just bring all these different tools together.
So it grabs the source code, analyzes it, writes up explanations, takes screenshots, creates diagrams,
Wow.
packages it all up into a neat little documentation packet.
Exactly. And then it even cleans up all the temporary files.
Oh, nice.
So you have a nice clean end product.
Now you might be wondering, how does Klein know what to do, what kind of documentation to generate?
Right.
That's where those prompts I mentioned earlier come in.
Okay.
The prompts are really the key to controlling Klein's behavior.
Gotcha.
They're essentially the instructions that guide the AI in its documentation creation process.
Right.
And the best part is Benjamin Buxbaum, the author of the Reddit post, he actually shares the exact prompts he uses.
Oh, well.
They're all available on GitHub, so you can check them out, even modify them, customize the output to your liking.
Very cool. So many possibilities.
I know. I'm really intrigued by this idea of prompts. It's like you're speaking the AI's language.
Yeah.
But wait, there's more?
Mm-hmm.
The Reddit post also includes some skepticism and counter-arguments
Oh, really?
about this whole approach. One commenter, Mr. Nameless User, raises a valid question. Why bother saving the documentation? If AI can just generate it on demand?
Right.
Why not just ask the AI to create it again whenever we need it?
Yeah, why go through the trouble of storing it?
It's like having a magic documentation genie at our disposal.
Right.
What are your thoughts on this? Is there still a reason to have tangible documentation in a world where AI can generate it instantly?
That's a good question. Well, that magic documentation genie sounds really nice.
It does.
But there are some very practical reasons why having an actual saved version of your documentation is still valuable even with AI.
Okay. I'm all ears. Convince me why I shouldn't just ditch all my documentation folders and rely solely on my AI overlords.
Oh, well, first of all, let's talk about accessibility.
Okay.
What happens if your AI model is offline?
Oh?
Or you're on a plane with no internet access?
Right.
Suddenly that magic genie's gone.
He's out of the bottle.
You can't get to it.
Right.
Having a local copy ensures that you can always refer to your documentation no matter what.
So it's like the book versus e-reader debate.
Exactly.
Sometimes you just need that physical copy
Sometimes you just need that hard copy.
you can rely on.
Yep. And then there's the issue of sharing.
Okay.
Imagine trying to explain this whole AI setup to a client
Right.
or a colleague who just needs to look at a piece of code.
Yeah, it just needs to understand it.
It's much easier to just hand them a document.
Right. A document's like a self-contained package of information.
Exactly, ready to go.
Ready to go.
And plus, AI models are constantly evolving.
That's true.
What's cutting edge today might be outdated tomorrow. If you only rely on that on-demand generation, you might miss out on the specific insights that an older model captured.
Okay.
Having a saved version is like a snapshot in time.
So it's almost like a historical record.
Exactly, preserving that knowledge.
But couldn't the AI figure out the why behind the code? If it had access to like all the project requirements and documentation, wouldn't that be enough?
It's a good question. And AI is certainly getting better at understanding context.
Right.
But the why often stems from the developer's deep understanding of the business needs and constraints.
Oh, okay.
The real-world challenges that might not be fully captured in formal documentation.
So it's about those human insights.
Exactly.
The kind of judgment calls that AI can't make.
Exactly.
Oh.
Documenting that human element is really crucial for creating documentation that truly adds value.
Right, not just technical descriptions.
Not just describing what the code does.
Okay, I'm starting to see why having that saved human annotated documentation is so important. But let's shift gears a bit and look at how we actually make this whole setup work.
Okay.
That's where Mario Andrzejczyk's blog post on the SAP community comes in.
All right.
This post dives into the nitty-gritty of connecting Visual Studio Code to your SAP system.
Right.
Which is essential for Kalen to do its magic.
Without that connection, Kalen can't access
Right.
the ABAP objects it needs to analyze.
And the blog post actually outlines two main ways to establish this connection.
Okay.
The first involves using an MCP server similar to the one mentioned in the Reddit post. But this time it's configured with something called ADT endpoints.
Okay.
And ADT stands for ABAP Development Tools,
Right.
which is a set of APIs that let your tools interact with SAP systems.
Okay, so like a specialized communication channel.
Yeah, it's like having a dedicated phone line between VS Code and your SAP system,
Exactly.
allowing Elanum to send requests and receive the information it needs. And there's even a specific MCP server called MCP ABAP AT that you can use for this purpose. It's open source, so if you're feeling adventurous, you can even contribute to its development.
That's pretty cool. I love that open source community aspect.
But there's another option for connecting VS Code to your SAP system, right?
Yeah.
The blog post also talks about using the ABAP's extension
Okay.
for VS Code.
Right.
ABAPs, which stands for ABAP File System,
Right.
allows you to mount your SAP system as a virtual file system
Okay.
directly within VS Code.
So instead of relying on a separate server,
Right.
you can kind of just browse your ABAP objects
Right.
as if they were just local files.
It's like having your entire SAP system at your fingertips.
Exactly, right there in VS Code.
Right, in VS Code.
Both options have their pros and cons, but the important thing is that they both enable that connection
Right.
between VS Code and your SAP system, which is essential for this whole process.
Now, remember that option of running the AI model locally using Olama?
Oh, yeah.
The blog post encourages exploring that route as well, highlighting the benefits in terms of performance and privacy.
Yeah, definitely worth looking into, especially if you're concerned about sensitive code.
Right, or want more control over your AI environment.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really appreciate about this blog post is its emphasis on community.
Yeah.
The author repeatedly encourages readers to get involved, contribute to the open source projects, and share their experiences.
Right. It shows that we're all in this together.
Right.
Figuring out how to best leverage AI.
Yep, to improve our workflows, make our lives a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool to see all these tools evolving and how open everyone is to sharing their knowledge.
Yeah.
Speaking of knowledge, sharing the blog post also touches on this idea of prompt engineering, which sounds super intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
What is that all about?
Yeah, prompt engineering is becoming really important in the world of AI. It's basically just crafting effective instructions or prompts to guide the AI model's behavior.
Okay.
So you're really learning how to speak AI's language.
So instead of just giving it some vague command, you're giving it very specific instructions to get the results you want.
Yeah, and the blog post even provides some tips and examples of how to customize those prompts for Cololine
Okay.
to influence the generated documentation. It's definitely a skill worth developing as AI becomes more prominent in our work.
It sounds like it could be like a whole new specialty within ABAP development, like the ABAP prompt engineer.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I want to take a step back and really highlight what all this means for you, the ABAP developer.
Right.
We've gone through the technical details, but what are the real tangible benefits here?
Well, the most obvious one is increased productivity by automating something like documentation. You free up countless hours to focus on more strategic work.
Right, designing elegant solutions, tackling those tough bugs.
Exactly. No more late nights spent trying to catch up on documentation.
That's a huge win in my book. It's like having a tireless documentation assistant
Exactly.
who never complains about working overtime.
That's right.
But it's not just about speed, right?
No, absolutely not. AI can actually help improve the quality of your documentation as well. AI models can analyze your code and spot potential issues or identify areas for improvement.
Oh, wow.
Things that humans might miss.
So it's not just about writing documentation faster. It's about writing better documentation.
Exactly.
And potentially even better code as a result.
That's right.
And let's not forget about the learning aspect. Imagine having AI help you understand complex ABI-POO concepts.
Yeah.
By providing clear explanations and practical examples.
Just like a personalized tutor.
It's like having a senior developer on call at all times.
Yeah, always there to answer your questions.
That's incredible, especially for those just starting out with ABI. This really empowers ABIP developers to work smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
And I think that's a key takeaway here.
Yeah, AI isn't here to replace us. It's here to help us reach new levels of productivity and creativity.
This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening.
It really has.
It's amazing to see how AI is changing the landscape of ABI development.
Yeah.
Opening up possibilities we might not have even imagined before.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder what other tedious or repetitive tasks that we can hand over to AI.
Right.
So that we can focus on the more human aspects of development, the creativity, the problem solving, the collaboration.
It's exciting to think about what the future holds. If AI can tackle documentation, what else is possible?
Yeah, what other ABAP processes are ripe for this kind of disruption?
That's something I think for all of you out there listening to really ponder.
Yeah, keep experimenting.
Keep pushing the boundaries.
And see what you can achieve with the power of AI.
And of course, if you want to explore the tools and resources we talked about today, you can find links to everything in the show notes.
Yeah.
Huge thanks to Benjamin Buxbaum and Mario Andrzejczak for sharing their insights and really paving the way for this exciting new era of ABA development.
It's really a testament to the ABA community and how innovative everybody is.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the world of tech, so be sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Until then, happy coding.